Set in 1960s France, a lively person by the name Rody gets hired in a restaurant working for the charismatic, successful chef Vince. Trying to earn as much money as possible doing this job as a gig rather than a career, Rody works hard for his first day, serving every single customer when he finally finishes his shift, ending the day going back to his cozy, cheap apartment. The apartment is, well, not very welcoming and luxurious, but for Rody it's more than enough as he barely spends time there anyways, going to work and getting back really late. The apartment is a mess with stains found everywhere, unwashed dishes piled in the sink, and unfinished love letters which he has little time to complete. It seems as if Rody has just started living an independent life, trying to figure out life and make something for himself. Trying to call someone specific, as he mentions her. She doesn't pick up, but she dismisses it as her being busy. Going through the apartment, Rody goes over his lack of survival skills of how he had an accident trying to simply reheat food, which he promised himself to just stick to takeout. He then just passes by the dirty piles of plates, and it paints a clear image of how out of order he is, not having his life together. But again, he probably spends majority of his time at work, and with little time that he has left, he tries to impress a girl who doesn't seem to be too much into him. As he mentions, last time she was over, he played her some record to which she paid little attention to and fell asleep. So it seems like this little love affair is not really going Rody's way, and he seems a little too naive to see it clearly, still having high hopes to meet her again. Second day begins and Rody gets on his bicycle, pedaling in a rush as he is late to work. As he arrives, he is met by an anxious and angered Vince, the chef of the bistro, not having it that Rody is late to work for his second day. Just then, Vince notices how drenched he is, who has been cycling to work in the pouring rain without having an umbrella. Not being appropriate to be on the floor serving customers looking like that, Vince takes it to himself to grab a towel and dry Rody, which seems a little weird and intimate, as Rody has two fully functional arms to do it himself, but Vince for some reason decides to do it himself. They then have a chat with Rody teasing him, which makes Vince have a little play fight with him. Well, we probably already know where this is gonna go, especially very convenient as it seems the specific she Rody was dating is no longer interested in him, opening up a space just for Vince to fit in. Or is that actually where this is going? Rody then quickly gets back on the restaurant floor, ready to serve the customers. After another long shift, the day comes to an end with Rody going back home. Going back to sleep, his third day at work begins. This time managing to be there on time, he starts quickly serving the customers, getting a hang of his demanding work. Going to the kitchen to empty the trash bin, something sharp cuts his finger, which leads to the trash bag dropping and ripping open. Being extremely apologetic and embarrassed, Chef Vince gives him a stinging slap of passion, seemingly being concerned about him, bandaging his cut and pretending his intimacy is because of workplace, that he cannot go and serve customers with an open bleeding wound. I mean, Rody would be plenty capable of bandaging himself up, but of course, there seems to be some tension in the air, at least from Vince's side. So where is this exactly going, and what is the reason for his strange intimacy? After an unexpected long shift, more challenging than before, Rody finishes his shift and heads back home. Back in his cozy and dirty apartment, he tries calling the special she, but yet again, she doesn't respond, being very clear now that she has lost any grain of interest in Rody. Going to sleep, Rody has a strange nightmare where he starts feeling unusually itchy when cut marks appear on his body, with multiple hands wielding kitchen knives and cleavers approaching him, treating him like butchered meat when he jumps out of his unusual nightmare, strangely connected to the bistro that he is working in. He dismisses it as stress from a new job, deciding to get ready for work as there's no point going back to sleep any longer. to have a short nap. Back at work for his 4th day, he serves all the customers and heads to the kitchen, carrying all the dirty plates to clear up the tables for new customers to arrive. That's when he sees a different side of Chef Vince, being extremely hostile and menacing towards a cook who messed up an order. His reason for messing up was being burned as the flour was too close to the fire, to which Vince doesn't hesitate a second, physically threatening the cook, getting his face as close as possible to the open stove, saying if he is scared of the stove, then he has no business in the kitchen, and if he gets burned, he has to carry on cooking. This unveils Vince has little empathy towards injuries sustained by his employees, despite saying otherwise in the media. This raises the question to why he would care about Rody's small injury, the cut on his finger, and taking care of him. It's clear that he has more in mind than a simple work relationship with Rody and wants more. Hence why he acts soft and nice to him, depicting how selfish and hypocritical he is. Continuing his over-the-top Gordon Ramsay impression, he makes the cook beg for forgiveness and to never mess up, taking a break to cool down. Rody follows him outside as he has already served all the customers and has cleaned up, revealing that he's working here in order to make as much money as possible in a week, in order to do something special for this mysterious girl that he's been trying to call, whose name turns out to be Manon. He thinks getting a raise would definitely help, as he could maybe sweep her off her feet. It seems as if Rody is trying way too much, trying to woo her with materials and money, someone who doesn't seem to be necessarily interested in him. Fencing right through it clearly, he decides not to speak out of line, just simply ending the conversation with a Rody then proceeds to finish up with the last customers and head back home. Going straight to sleep, with Manon still not answering his calls, he has yet another nightmare related to the kitchen, seeing himself packaged up in a cling film wrapped plate, ready to be sold as butchered meat. New day begins and he starts his shift again, asking Vince if he's got a favorite dish, to which he reveals that he lost his ability of taste at a young age, being very ironic to how he is a well-praised chef with no sense of taste himself. Going back to the restaurant floor, after a lengthy shift, time reaches midnight and it's time to close up. As Rody gets to cleaning up, he hears strange sounds coming from the freezer. As the bistro is completely empty, he decides to go to the office and snoop around. That's where he finds a review of the bistro by a critic this week, which complains about the waiter and the service, despite the food being as good as ever. Vince seems to have scratched off the complaint and review of the waiter, as if being angered and unhappy about what the critic had wrote. It's unclear if this review is about Rody or the previous waiter that was there before him. Eventually, Rody being nosy as ever, he searches the trash can where he finds a crumpled piece of paper having sketch of Vince alongside a woman where there are love letters as well written. All the letters are signed with the letter or initial M, which makes it a mystery to who it is addressed to and who it was written by. As Rody cannot enter the freezer being locked, he decides to head back home as it's already too late. Yet again, he is tormented by more culinary related nightmares, seeing himself trapped in a working oven. Starting the new day, the 6th day, nothing significant happens, going straight into the 7th. After the shift comes to an end, Rody goes straight to Vince and gives him his resignation, which comes as a surprise to him. Rody explains that he wanted a temporary waiter anyway to replace the previous one, which makes Vince explain the position is open if he would like to stay, to which Rody refuses, knowing he has enough money now to treat Manon, the girl that he has been head over heels for. In a strange tone, Vince asks Rody if he at least liked the leftovers that he was giving him, to which Rody gives an honest response that it was a little bitter, to which Vince gives him a strange look, ending the conversation. He goes straight to the nearest payphone, paycheck in hand, calling Manon, who yet again doesn't respond with Rody, leaving multiple voice messages. It's revealed that they were a thing, but Manon asked to have a break, never picking up his calls anymore. Calling and calling non-stop, wishing to just hear her voice. The call never connects, with Rody left on the ringtone, never seeing Manon ever again. Someone he worked his butt off for in the bistro, saving money just to take her out, but it doesn't happen. In an alternate ending, on the 6th day back at home, Rody receives a call from Vince, who invites him to a dinner party. Finding it strange as Rody wants to ask him about something, he decides to go and finds himself under the spotlight. Rethinking his decision while behind his door, trying to bounce and bring an excuse, the door promptly opens with an ever-serious and stiff Vince opening the door, revealing that he asked him to be here so that he can cater and serve all the guests who are coming tonight to his dinner party. Clearly offended and surprised, thinking he was invited as a guest rather than a worker, he doesn't take it so well, but as the guests soon arrive, he gets to the kitchen instinctually to pick up the plates and serve them. After serving the guests and talking to some of them, it is revealed that Chef Vince doesn't necessarily or easily pick and choose his employees. They go through a stringent kind of process, and only a few manage to be hired by him. So the guests wonder why he would ever hire someone like Rody. Indeed, a strange thing even to Rody himself, who only has a temporary role. They think maybe he took a specific kind of liking to him. Coincidentally, speaking to another guest, they happen to recognize him back from a class in the university in which he majored in hospitality. It seems it didn't end up too well as he flunked out. For some strange reason, seeming as if he is embarrassed, he finds an excuse to escape the conversation, managing to go to the other parts of the house, not able to hold back his nosy, curious tendencies. He is definitely someone who has never heard the term curiosity killed the cat. That's when he manages to go to Vince's bedroom, where he finds the freezer's key, the place where the strange sounds were coming from, somewhere that he is dying to go in and find out what's happening inside. Vince suddenly comes to the room, catching him snooping around, to which he gives him an unbelievable excuse, which Vince dismisses, not pressing him any longer. Going to the living room, Rody sees Vince all alone with all the guests gone early in the night, which surprises Rody. Vince explains something came up, refusing to elaborate to what really happened when he leaves, being yet again tormented by another nightmare, but this time around being a lot more personal. In there, he sees himself being the latest dish of Vince, whom he uses cutlery to consume with his uniform, and inside the bistro. Next day begins and Rody snoops around some more, using the freezer's key to go and investigate the source of the sound. That's where he uncovers a horrifying secret, finding the locket of Manon, who had her own picture, revealing that's what the reason behind her not picking up the phone was. She had become the new victim of Chef Vince, who seemingly butchered her and served her to the customers, or Rody. This reveals Vince's interest in knowing more about Rody and his girlfriend, and why he was so personal and intimate with him. That also explains why Rody complained about the leftovers being bitter in the previous ending, and why Vince asked such strange questions about them. Being in a state of shock, unable to think straight, Vince comes out of nowhere and hits Rody over the head with something heavy, knocking him out unconscious. As he awakens, he finds himself wrapped in heavy, sturdy rope, unable to get out. Vince appears in a menacing way, revealing his true nature, being a sadistic killer, playing with Rody, his prey, before slaying him, giving him 15-second head start before chasing him down and killing him. That's when he says how pathetic Rody is, not being able to be faster to save his own life, killing him and putting his body next to Manon, whom he will probably butcher and serve to unknowing guests. So this depicts that when Rody found the freezer's key and stole it, while being caught by Vince, Vince already knew that he found the freezer's key and he's going to snoop. So he prepared himself and set it as a perfect trap so that he can butcher him, something he seemingly wanted to do for a while, something he does to people that he takes a liking to. This time around, if Rody would purchase matches from a catalog that he read before, he manages to burn the ropes tightly wrapped around him, successfully freeing himself during the time that he's alone on the floor, without Vince being present. This ending is very similar to the last, as when Rody manages to go to the kitchen, out of the freezer room, Vince appears out of nowhere and attacks him with a knife, managing to kill Rody and taking him to the freezer room, where he butchers him and prepares him for the new customers. This time around, struggling to fight Vince, he takes a bite out of Rody, biting off his ear, which reveals he's been trying to make the perfect dish with perfect recipe, so maybe he can taste something, as he is unable to taste. It's revealed he knew about Manon before, someone who showed passing interest in him, treating Chef Vince like a flank or a rebound, wanting to move on and dismiss Rody, who tried so hard to be with her. The locket Rody found belonged to Manon, being with Vince, and the letters and the sketch that he found in the trash were written by Manon, hence why the initial M, which Vince cared little for, crumpling them and throwing them into the trash, instead wanting to use both Manon and Rody as his recipe in order to make a meaningful dish, so his lack of taste would be satiated, at least having some sort of meaning or sentimental feeling. Vince has been critiqued that he doesn't cook with love, something meaningless to him, yet he wanted to feel it. That's why he specifically chose Rody, someone who didn't have precise experience with hospitality, yet someone who loved Manon deeply. That's why he targeted him, wanting to create a dish with love in it. Definitely not what the critics meant about cooking with love, but for a psychotic artsy-fartsy Vince, that didn't make much difference. That's when Rody reveals he never ate Vince's food, saying the shape and the smell of it disgusted him, understanding why now, because it was Manon and other employees that he fired. Managing to outmaneuver Vince, Rody finds a broken bottle which he uses as a weapon and repeatedly stabs Vince with it, until he believes that it kills him. Being filled with adrenaline, slowly realizing what he's done, taking a man's life, something that he doesn't yet know how to handle, but something that his adrenaline is currently clouding. For revenge, Rody picks up some oil and sets the place ablaze to burn everything that contains anything from Vince, which turns out, despite being stabbed several times, he didn't actually die, essentially dying while burning alive. At the very end, as an outro, we see a conversation between Manon and Rody on how she wasn't a heartless, money-hungry person, but instead a sensible woman who explained to Rody that the constant need for making her happy without focusing on his own life is very unhealthy, and Rody needs to grow up and be someone who relies on himself and discovers his own dreams and goals, as otherwise he would only live for someone else and never be happy or satisfied. She explains that she still loved him, but that he needs to find his own purpose first. A very sensible and logical reason for separating, and in the long run, it does actually make sense on how one needs to be their own person and individual to be able to connect with someone else, someone whom Rody wasn't, just wanting to live and do things for someone else. But now, in a way, this made him someone who fought for his own life and what he desires, a life and also revenge against Vince, who killed Manon. So maybe he would become his own person, if not left traumatized forever. And that's it for this video, folks. If you enjoyed it, make sure to stay tuned for more by hitting on the subscribe button and the notification bell. As always, it's been your host Star, and I will see you on the next one. Have a fantastic day.